About 90% of the startups fail within the first 2 years after founding them. Today we're going to talk about marketing strategies and why so many marketing strategies fail.
Good morning, Ben. How is it going?
Quite early today. What about you?
Yeah, same, but I'm getting used to it. These early starts are kind of a good idea. I think we have more energy.
7:30 in Munich, Germany, and no one is actually awake yet.
The city is asleep. It's nice. You can just drive over all the red lights and by bike, of course, not by car. All right, let's start. So you've posted this a while ago on your LinkedIn as well, why most marketing strategies fail. Can you just take us through it? What's the number one reason, maybe?
I would say there is definitely one number one reason, and this is the lack of real strategic research before jumping into the competition. And I would just like to give one example. I see very often within marketing audits, also of larger startups that have previously raised quite decent amounts of funding, that they start with specific channels without any holistic brand strategy. They don't really know their value proposition. So just these fundamentals that you should have in shape before you start investing. I really see it very often that they are not in shape. And let's just talk about one specific example when companies approach us and we see that they are doing large investments in performance marketing, for example, or in whatever channel it is, and they don't have clear buyer personas. It's very often the case that specifically for longer deal cycles, I mean, for shorter deal cycles that might work, you can just go on Google and invest, 10 grand per month and see if you have a positive return on invest. That's definitely possible. But typically when companies get more mature, it can become difficult to just scale everything with Google Ads. And also it becomes risky because you're fully dependent on one platform. So buyer personas are one of the classic things that I see very often, that they are not in shape. And it's a big risk because at the end of the day, companies invest a lot of money on audiences that are completely irrelevant.
And then maybe the next step, what is maybe a wrong priority of channels and areas to spend their money on?
Classic story I've also seen many times is that after raising a successful round, it's probably not a Series A, but more Series B or Series C. I very often see companies investing heavily in actually building up a brand content, let's say a brand content strategy where you get very expensive advertisements in the production, very expensive.
Yeah.
So this is also quite often, maybe not a net breaker because most of these companies are already quite mature, but you can see that there is a real bad return on invest for these sometimes. They can also be done very well, but it sometimes strongly correlates with the ego of the founders, that they are they really want to build up a love brand, but specifically for B2B. I have seen many cases where building up a love brand is just not relevant at all. You should focus on generating value instead of generating stories that your friends say, wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, that's cool. That's flashy. So would you say it makes sense when you're starting out to, instead of pushing, 50K into Google Ads, to first build out your own organic audience or reach, invest in your website, invest in your SEO? Where would you put those first 50K?
My recommendation with the first 50K would definitely be not to invest 50K in first place. Just getting a first traction. I think it makes sense to benchmark. When you look at the product life cycle, You know, in the beginning you have this, I don't know what's it called, introduction, and then you have the growth, and then you have the maturity, and then you have a decline.
Yeah.
Because every product has a start and an end. That's normal.
Yeah.
You can look at the horse trading early when there was no cars. And first thing I would recommend is to benchmark where on this product life cycle is the product at the moment. If it's in the beginning of the product life cycle, there's very likely no demand because people are not familiar with the product. So you shouldn't consider investing a lot of money most of the times in channels like Google Ads. Why? Because Google Ads makes sense for markets where there's already demand. If no one searches for the product, then you cannot advertise on this channel. Except for the case that you have a substitute that can work. If you have a substitute, you can also try to substitute a mature market with a new product, but it has to be a quite comparable substitute with a lot of value that hasn't seen before. But that would be my first recommendation, to benchmark where on this product lifecycle is the product or the service at the moment. Once that is fixed, you can determine, okay, what's maybe a good stage for for channel introduction. So let's take a high ticket sales process. So you're selling maybe only to banks, and the average deal size is 150,000 to 1 million. Let's take that as an example. With this targeting, you should definitely consider a marketing strategy that is super tailored to address the decision makers of banks, and they are not infinite. Decision makers of banks, you can probably address them with a good targeting very efficiently on LinkedIn, maybe on GDN, YouTube, something like that. But it's crucial to understand what's the target audience. You can do that based on the buyer personas, and at the end of the day, sometimes you have to create the demand first. So that's a different strategy than to do a lower funnel approach. So if you start a veterinary clinic, you can probably go lower funnel because everyone knows that there are veterinary clinics in the world. You don't have to say, oh, we can now support you with your pet if it's dying or whatever.
Okay, so you say don't spend the 50K. Really think about where to spend it first. Think about your audience. Think about your persona, how you can actually reach them. How would you say is the percentage of strategy versus executions? Do most marketing strategies fail because of bad strategy or bad execution in your experience?
Well, I don't think that there's a clear pattern in that. We do a lot of audits, and all of these audits are typically, the worst thing that I see very often is that a CMO or a head of marketing or a marketing manager who's not familiar with a specific channel says, "Ooh, well, I can just do that myself." So classic thing is within an audit, we look in a Google Ads account, we look in a LinkedIn Ads account, and we see that there was just a manager who had never done this before, ramping up campaigns without proper tracking, without a proper keyword strategy, without a proper... That's something that I really see a lot. So I think that the strategy sometimes can be okay-ish, but when the execution completely fails, then there are no results. I recently had last week really a lot of audits, and I saw it in 2 out of 3 accounts that just the LinkedIn strategy, as well as the Google Ads strategy, as well as the page strategy for conversion rate optimizing, everything was just done by pure gut feeling. So I would say that's a classic pattern I see. If a strategy really is wrong, I think you cannot determine that from the beginning on. You always start with some good hypothesis. Of course, they should be easy to understand. But you have to find out whether the strategy is then true. And it's also for very experienced marketers, sometimes not possible to really say, well, I think you're working great with a demand gen strategy. You can have that gut feeling, but I was sometimes surprised that things worked great where I was quite concerned about in the beginning when I heard about the approach, and other way around as well. I also experienced cases where I thought, well, that's a no-brainer. We can just do this and that, and turned out it's not working.
It's not a good idea. And how do you, as an agency, work around these sometimes bad client managers or say corporate politics, where good ideas or good strategies can often get lost in the corporate mess?
I wouldn't say they are bad managers, definitely not. Because what I see a lot is that managers really try their best to reach good results. And the reason why they jump into a specific channel with a hands-on mentality is because they want to secure liquidity for their company. They don't want to hire someone. They don't want to work with an expert in this field. They just think, okay, let's do it first, our own. But what's really interesting is I always try to compare it with craftsman services. You could basically try to do all of or many things on your own, but consider renovating your bathroom. I would say it's from the complexity. I mean, that's maybe a little bit weird, but I know the marketing field quite well. I think it's from a technical perspective, it's quite comparable with setting up a strategy on LinkedIn or setting up a really good working Google Ads account. You just need about 6 to 12 months to get used to it. And once you have seen some, and now think about this example. Do you think it's good to consider starting the renovation of your bathroom on your own? I would say it's possible if you go all in and you educate yourself and you really watch a lot of YouTube videos, and you can deal with the fact that some things will be done shitty at the end. If that's really where you think that the return on invest is great, I would recommend to try it out. But it's also a great example where you can say, okay, shifting my focus to doing my business and to focusing on what I can do really good while having someone renovating my bathroom. Of course, that's for the channel strategy. I wouldn't compare renovating the bathroom with the complete marketing strategy, because the complete marketing strategy strongly correlates with the competition. And this is something that completely changes the game to, okay, what's really a proper comparison to the bathroom.
And building a bathroom has been kind of the same the last, 60 years since.
Yeah, but I would say that
fewer technological steps or advances.
I agree, but I would say that also the fundamental channel strategies, they have not shifted a lot. You get a lot of new formats and some AI, blah, blah, but at the end of the day, you still follow some basic rules.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would definitely say those are strategy and operational execution can be both neck breakers. Hey everyone, do you enjoy today's episode? Hit the subscribe button and support us with your subscription. We really appreciate your support, and now let's go back to the episode.
Okay. Do you have any other reasons why most strategies fail?
Another reason that I see a lot is definitely patience. Specifically at a later stage when strategy really becomes challenging. Let's take a classic example. A company is in an early stage, ramps up some Google Ads campaigns. Turns out they are working okay-ish, so they have a good return on invest. But after, let's say, 1 or 2 years, they recognize, okay, we are somewhere at a place where either the CPCs are increasing because competition is rising, or we just don't see that the growth we expect can be just derivated from these campaigns in Google Ads or in whatever it is. And then the logical next step is they think about, okay, what can be the next channel? that we are tackling. Of course, for B2C companies, Meta can also deliver quite fast results. So that's, I would say, comparable. But when it comes to specifically larger deal sizes, they take longer. The decision process is more complex. And you definitely need more patience for delivering results. And let's just take LinkedIn or maybe even an out-of-home campaign or something like that, where you have a bigger delay because it's more connected to brand building and building trust first. So what I see is that also in the management, very often the benchmarking, whether the channel is performing, is anchored somewhere where Google Ads was before, or where Meta was.
Yeah.
And this is fundamentally tricky because it will lead to the conclusion that the channel is not working after 3 or 6 months. Because within Meta or Google Ads, it's very likely that your strategy will not need 3 or 6 months. And also the habits that are developed within a company, looking at the dashboards on a weekly basis, seeing how many leads have been generated, checking the quality of the. If you go for a long shot in building up a brand and building up trust, you have to break all of these habits to understand that otherwise the benchmarking will be completely random.
Yeah.
And it comes with a lot of frustration. So I would say that's definitely one of probably the second biggest reason for failing in strategy execution is that there is no patience. You understand that it takes time. You understand that it will be costly to build up a brand. But still within a management, there is no patience for really executing that. On the other hand side, you can argue very well why it's working. Let's just consider a classic strategy with a clear targeting. You have, let's say, only C-level of companies with 500 or more employees in Europe.
Yeah.
You can target them, and every dollar you invest will be spent on this audience. You can definitely say you are building up brand awareness. So it's measurable. But the thing is that coming from lower funnels, everyone is just checking, okay, what's the ROAS? You cannot check that for 1 or 2 months. So,
and I guess there's often missing this kind of holistic view, right? Because in this digital age now, attribution becomes so complex. Every customer gets touched by 4 different channels maybe, and if companies only look at one dashboard every week, that gets lost or the performance looks worse than it actually is when zooming out. Or how do you see attribution in this field?
My recommendation is always to go with self-attributed analytics. For the listeners, I know that there are quite a lot of tools out there for tracking touch points, and some of them are really great.
Yeah.
My personal experience is that self-attribution is always most important. So you cannot outperform self-attribution with any attribution tool that you get on the market.
Okay. Yeah, nice. Maybe that's something for another episode as well, for a little deep dive. But nice, thanks. A short and sweet episode today. And see you next time.
Thanks Julius. Have a great day.